Namaskar. You are most welcome in the studio of Nios. Today our topic is Assessment Techniques in EVS, Written Test. Assessment. What is assessment actually? Assessment is an attempt to measure some particular ability, knowledge, or skills of an individual. This implies that by assessment, we can assess the particular ability of an individual. How much knowledge she is having, we can assess that also. And what skills she has adopted after learning, this can be also assessed. And when it is assessed, it is known as the assessment. The second thing about assessment is a tool for planning, guiding, and enriching classroom science, learning, teaching. Since we are talking about the EVS, that's why here it is mentioned science, learning, and teaching. Now, what does assessment helps in? Assessment helps in planning a good plan. It helps in guiding student, teachers, teacher educators, or whosoever is there. And it also enriches our classroom of a teacher or a teacher educator. By assessment, we know where we are standing, whether we have accomplished the task or not, or yet something has to be achieved. So assessment is very important in our day-to-day life, as well as in a school, as well as in the classroom also. Without assessment, we cannot know how much we have reached and how much is left. Assessment is very, very important. What is the way of doing assessment? Saying that we are going to assess you, this doesn't mean that we are going to assess you. There are some tools and techniques used for assessment. What are these assessment techniques are used for actually? They are used for monitoring outcomes of environmental science, teaching and learning. Means, what outcome has come? I have taught one chapter. Now, how much you have achieved? Whether the objectives had been fulfilled or not. Education or teaching is a tripolar system, as you all know. Means at the top is the learning objectives or teaching objectives. And then comes the learning experience. And then there is the evaluation or assessment. Means we have to assess that whether we have achieved that objective or not, which we have predefined, which we have set for the subject or the content or the topic. So assessment techniques are used to monitoring that outcomes. Means we have achieved the objective or not, or yet something has to come. Now the second purpose of assessment is diagnostic. As the doctor diagnoses our problem, here teachers diagnose our problem by assessment techniques. After diagnosing, there are some guidance. As doctor gives the treatment and prescription, the teacher gives the guidance. She is there to guide you, and only guidance is possible when there is diagnosis of the problem. And assessment techniques helps a lot in diagnostic purpose. These are the use of assessment techniques. Now, what type of assessment techniques we can use? There are many type of assessment techniques, and it is broadly divided into two. One is the oral and the second one is the written assessment techniques. You may know that what is oral and what is written. Written, when we are giving paper pencil to the child and we are assessing, that is the written assessment technique, and we are asking things orally, then this is the oral assessment technique. Now there are different types of assessment also. Based on the type of assessment, we can use different techniques. Means whether we have to go with the oral technique or whether we have to go with the written technique, it depends on the type of assessment. Now let's see how many types of assessments are there actually. There are basically two types of assessment which we are performing in our classroom day-to-day life. One is the formative assessment and the second one is the summative assessment. Formative assessment means formative assessment is for formation. Means it is not the final judgment that yes, you are pass, you are fail, you have achieved this much of marks, you have to achieve this much of marks. No, not like that. It is formative assessment, means for the formation of the child, for the formation of his personality, for the formation of his attitude, for the formation of his aptitude, for the formation of his personality, overall development. For formative assessment, what type of techniques we can use? We can plan an activity, we can give them puzzles, we can also ask them to make a scrapbook. Since our topic is only written test, so I have described here that for formative assessment in EVS, what written techniques we can use. We can plan an activity, we can give them puzzles, and we can also ask them to make a scrapbook. Now let's see what is the example of giving them activity. Suppose our first chapter of EVS was going to school. It was all about the vehicles used in our day-to-day life. So we can say that make a drawing of a cart in your notebook, maybe bullock cart, maybe horse cart, whatever is there. Second, we can give prepare a scrapbook on vehicles which you see while coming to school. When you are coming to school, what vehicles you are seeing, you can make scrapbook on that, and by this we can assess him formally. Formatively we can assess them. See, this is the example of puzzle. Since the second chapter was of animals, here different kinds of animals are there, their pictures are here, and they have to write down the name. By this we can fulfill the objective whether they are able to recognize the animals or not. Different kind of animals, pet animals, domestic animals, and wild animals are there. So whether they are able to recognize it or not, these type of puzzles you can frame. We are having lot of examples like this. These puzzle can be also created for the vehicles, mode of transport. We can make river and then give which mode of transport you are going to use for this. We can make sky and say which transport you are going to use. So in this way, written, we can do so many things. We can make puzzles and questions, so many things for formative assessment. Now comes the next, summative assessment. In summative assessment, we assess the overall of the child. Means according to the objective, we have to assess him. Objective of knowledge, objective of understanding, objective of application, interest, attitude and skill. There are so many objectives. There are objectives of cognitive domain, affective domain, as well as the psychomotor domain. Here we have to assess him for all the objectives, and overall assessment is also done in summative assessment. What type of techniques we can use? Written techniques. We are talking about the written techniques. In written techniques, we can give them objective type questions. We can give them very short type questions. Then we can go for short type questions and essay type questions as well. Here are some example of objective type questions. For example, there was a chapter about tree. I have taken one example. Khejri tree is found in, where it is found in ground, desert, cold areas. Similarly, we can frame more examples. Why should we grow plant, and which trees are grown or sown in the desert area, which trees are in the grown in the cold areas. So many, and we can give them options, 2 options, 3 options, 4 options. These are objective type questions, and it can be used to assess their cognitive domain objectives. The second one is, in which month do the leaves fall? They can tell you in which month do the leaves fall. Next question is, it is a very short type of question. In which month do the leaves? It is hardly 1 or 2 words answer. So it is very short type question. The next is short answer type question. Why do people hunt? Here you have to give the reason. Why do people hunt? So he has to write down the answer in 2, 3, 4 lines. So this is short type answer type questions. And the last question I have given as an example. Describe any tree of your choice with its importance. The individual has to choose one tree and then he has to describe it and write down its importance also. So here we have ample of thinking. We have to write down ample of things, at least one page say. So it is a big answer for the child of a class 4 or 5, and it comes into the essay type answers. And by using objective type, very short, and essay type, we can assess the summative assessment in the EVS. Now one more, I have told you that without diagnosis, no guidance can be done. So one more assessment is there for diagnostic assessment in EVS. Assessment techniques are also used for diagnostic purpose. And in diagnostic purpose, we should not use objective type questions, but we should go for very short answer type question and short answer type question. Here also we cannot go for essay type question, because in essay type question, the child has to do imagination, and when he is able to imagine and he is fluent in writing, that he may not have too much of trouble or problem. So there is no need of diagnostic assessment. So for diagnostic assessment, we use two type of written techniques generally, that is very short answer type question and short answer type question. We have earlier seen the examples of these type of question. Now, since the assessment is done in the reference to the objectives, so we should know that how we can assess the objectives of different domain. We have three types of domain. We have cognitive domain, affective domain, and then psychomotor domain. So here the first slide says you about the techniques used to assess the cognitive domain in EVS. The first thing is multiple choice question. As we have seen before, that khejuri tree is found in desert area, cold areas, or anywhere else, ground. So these type of questions are multiple choice question. For example, we can also give in village people use which mode of transport. We can write down bullock cart, we can write down ships, we can write down aeroplanes, and we can also write down four-wheelers. Naturally the answer will be bullock carts. So these type of multiple choice question we can frame, and it fulfills the objective of objective cognitive domain, because there we learn how to recall, recognize, and it is totally based on the knowledge. The next one is fill in the blanks. In fill in the blanks also we recall the things. For example, khejuri tree is grown in, fill in the blanks. So he will write down where it is grown. We can write down which mode of transport is used in sky, fill in the blanks it is again. And we can say lion is a dash animal, a wild animal. This is fill in the blanks example. Matching test, you all know we have to match column 1 to column 2. As our second chapter was year to year, and in that chapter it was discussed about the different body parts of the animals. So in one column we can give the animal name, and in the other column we can give the parts of the animal which is seen and which is not seen, and they have to match the column. So in this way we are assessing again the cognitive domain objective. Then crossword puzzles, I have shown you one, and similarly we can make a lot, and in this also we recognize and recall the things. Then we have very short answer type questions, one line answer or two line answer we can give. Then we have short answer type questions, 3 lines answers or 2 line answers we can also give, and by this also we are assessing their cognitive domain objective. Last one is the essay answer type question. In that also we assess their cognitive domain objectives. So we can give essay answer type questions also. These all techniques are used to assess the cognitive domain in EVS. Next domain is the affective domain. In affective domain, we have to assess development of their sensitivity, development of their feelings. So for that, objective type question or multiple choice question, fill in the blanks questions, matching the column questions are not appropriate actually, because they are not fulfilling our objective of assessing the feelings. We cannot assess anybody feelings with the multiple choice question, with the fill in the blanks. So here we use very short answer type questions, 2-line explanation or reason out in 1 line, or short answer type question, 4 lines, 5 lines, why this happened, what you will do in such conditions, what you are going to do when you see these type of things happening around you. And then you can give essay answer type question. Here also they develop the sensitivity. For example, if we say how you will feel when you will be an horse, you will be a horse and people will like to ride on you, how will you feel? So these type, write a note on this, write an essay on this. Which is your favorite animal? How will you live with them? What will happen if the world will be full of dinosaurs? So they will develop their imagination and they will write down their feelings, and we can assess the affective domain objectives. Here are some examples for you. Building atomic power plant is, means it is very short type answer. They have to write down accordingly. कि building atomic power plant is क्या है? What is this? So they have to write down like this. Being a vegetarian is, whether you feel very proud or no, being a vegetarian is very good or it is not good or we are not healthy, whatever is there. Then there is, how did you feel after you see a dead dog on the road? Here it is short answer type question. Here you have to write down the feelings. What do you feel when you see a dog? Generally, dog are the loved pet by everyone. So how do you feel when a dog is dead on the road? It's bleeding from the mouth, it's bleeding from the leg. How do you feel? And here we judge, we assess their affective domain objectives. Last one is, how do animals feel when you ride on them? Somebody will say, yes, they feel very happy, they are getting the jobs and they are used by us. Some will say, no, they don't feel happy, they are beaten by their boss, so it's very bad. So these type of questions can be used to assess their affective domain, their feelings, their attitude actually. Then what are the techniques used to assess psychomotor domain? As I told you previously, we have 3 domains objectives. First is the cognitive, second is the affective, and third one is the psychomotor domain. The cognitive domain deal with the head part, and the affective domain deal with the heart part, and the psychomotor domain deal with the hand part. Here hand is involved, means learning by doing. So here we have to assess their doing capacity, how much they can do, how much skills they have developed. So here what type of techniques we can use? I hope we cannot use objective type questions here. We cannot use fill in the blanks here. And we cannot use multiple choice questions here. We cannot use puzzles because they are not using their skills in completing that questions. So here what are the techniques used? For assessing the psychomotor domain, we use activity based questions. See, the kids are doing something. This is the activity. They are pasting something on the blackboard, they have prepared it, and then they have pasted and they are standing with finger on that they have done this. Second is recording of experiments. Since we are talking about the EVS, so in EVS, what they can do and how we are going to assess their psychomotor domain? We perform experiments, we show them experiments, we demonstrate them experiments, and we allow them to perform the experiments. So how they are performing the experiments, they are able to be skillful in that or not. They can record the experiment, they can record it properly and with accuracy. They are making inferences with that, they are doing observations, first observation, second observation, third observations. What are the difference between observation? These type of things can be assessed by only and only giving them activity-based questions and giving them experiments and asking them to record that things. Here are examples. Prepare a project describing families. For example, there was a chapter in a book about families. What we can do, how we can assess their psychomotor domain. We can ask them to prepare a project. Everybody will prepare a project, and in that project making they will show their creativity, they will show their skills, and we will be able to judge their psychomotor domain objectives. They will be pasting the family pictures, they will be able to differentiate between joint and single family and many more things. So their skills are reflected in that project preparation, and we can assess their psychomotor domain objectives by giving them these type of activity based questions. The second is conduct an experimentation on filtration of water and record it. There was a chapter, so much of water and less of water. Means we have so much of water but we cannot use that water. So we can give them an experiment to how to filter that water and how much water is used for drinking, why pure water is essential. So they can perform the experiment on filtration of water and they can record it, they can file it, and then we can judge whether they have learned the skill of experimentation or not. Small experiment, because to fifth class student we cannot give big experiments, we cannot ask them to do set big apparatus and do the big experiments, but little bit of small experiment can develop the attitude of experimenting, they develop the attitude of scientific knowledge, and they develop the attitude of handling the equipments, and the teacher will be able to judge, to assess their psychomotor domain objectives. So these type of things we can do and perform for assessing the psychomotor domain objectives. Now we will summarize the lesson, what we have studied. Actually, we were studying the assessment techniques, and we were only studying the written test. Means what written test you can use to assess the things. There are two types of assessment basically. One is a formative assessment and the second one is a summative assessment, which is nowadays going in the classroom. We have FA1, FA2, then SA1, then FA3, FA4 and then SA2. So for formative assessment and for summative assessment, which written tools can be used? Generally there are questions and there are forms of questions different. For example, there are multiple choice of question, very short, long, AC type. These type of questions are there which can be used for written test, and these are the techniques used for assessment. For formative assessment, we cannot go for AC type questions because here we are doing the assessment for performing better. We are not giving judgment here, we are not giving them the mark sheet, we can improve. And in schools also there are provisions that from 3 tests 2 best tests will be used for marking scheme. So here we are using the test assessment for the improvement. So here we are not supposed to give the AC type questions. Here we can give the activity, here we can give the small short answer type questions. But in summative assessment, we have to be totally based on the objectives, and when we are based on the objectives, then you have seen we have objectives related to knowledge, related to understanding, related to application, related to attitude, related to interest, and then related to skill. So we have to assess all these 6 objectives, and when we have to assess all these 6 objectives, then diversity of question increases. We are having multiple choice question, objective type questions, fill in the blanks, matching the column, a very short answer type question, short answer type question, AC type question. So many diversities we are having because we have to assess against these objectives. Now, since we have 3 domains related to the objectives, the knowledge, understanding and application is supposed to be the objective of cognitive domain. The interest and attitude is the objective of affective domain, and the skill is the objective of psychomotor domain. So these domains has to be taken into consideration to select the assessment techniques. We have discussed that which assessment technique will be good to judge the different types of domain. In cognitive domain, you can use multiple choice, short answer and AC type answer questions. But for affective domain objectives, you have to use very short answer type question, short answer type question. And AC type question can also be used so that they may express their feelings, they can express their attitude, we can judge their attitude and their interest also. And for skill assessment, we have to give them some work, we have to give them some activity, or we have to give them some experiment to assess their skills and their courage and their experimenting techniques. So there are different types of written test and assessment techniques to be used to assess the different types of objectives. Hope you enjoyed with assessment techniques and tools. Thanks, and we will meet again in the next session. Till then, bye-bye. Have a nice day.